When I walked into the party that night, I had a knot in my stomach. My husband, who I thought I knew, was there, laughing and chatting, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The air felt heavy, like it was holding its breath, and I kept noticing glances, smiles that lingered too long. I told myself to calm down. Maybe I was imagining things, but deep down, I already knew. I had my whole family with me, my mother, my younger sister, and even my teenage daughter. I brought them because I wanted them to see the man I married, the man I had believed would stand by me in his true colors. I didn't know exactly how I would confront him. I just knew I couldn't let this slide, not anymore. The room was loud, music thumping and glasses clinking. I could feel every laugh, every cheer bouncing off me. And then I saw her, the woman he had been talking to, leaning just a little too close. Her hand brushed his arm, and I froze. Time slowed down, every detail sharper, the sparkle in her hair, the way he leaned in, the small smirk that flashed across his face. I swallowed hard. I could feel my heart pounding, my stomach twisted, but I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to scream. I wanted to be calm. I wanted to show him, to show everyone, that I had control, even if my world felt like it was falling apart. I walked closer, my family behind me, a quiet army of support, holding back words, letting me lead the storm. My daughter clutched my hand, her eyes wide, sensing my tension. My sister gave me a small nod, almost a warning, almost a reassurance. My mother just looked at me with those eyes that have seen decades of heartbreak and yet still held hope. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every past fight, every broken promise, every secret that had stayed hidden behind closed doors. Tonight, I whispered to myself, the truth comes out. And then I saw him look at me, my husband, the man I had trusted. For a moment, his face froze, and I could see something like fear or maybe guilt flicker across his features. That's when I realized this was no longer just my private pain. This was about all of us, my family, my pride, my sense of justice. I didn't have to scream. I didn't have to yell. All I had to do was stand there. I smiled, and in that small, quiet smile, I could feel the power shift. The party didn't notice it first. No one did. But when I stepped forward, my family flanking me, I knew this night would change everything. I didn't know how yet, but I knew in that moment that he would never underestimate me again. Before that night, our lives seemed ordinary, almost perfect, at least from the outside. My husband and I had been together for over 10 years. We bought a small house in the suburbs, had family dinners on Sundays, and shared little routines that made life feel safe. People often said we were the picture of stability, the couple who had it all. But behind closed doors, it was different. I loved him deeply, I truly did. And I believed that love would carry us through anything. But over the past few years, I began noticing little things. Missed calls, secretive texts, long nights at work, and smiles that didn't reach his eyes when he was around me. I tried to ignore them at first. I wanted to believe in him. I wanted to believe in us. My family knew some of it, but not everything. My mother has always been protective, and my sister, though younger, is sharp and instinctive. My daughter, at 15, is too innocent to see the cracks I've tried to hide. But that night, bringing them along wasn't just about exposing him, it was about showing them and reminding myself that I wasn't alone. Growing up, my mother always said, "Honey, sometimes love isn't enough. Respect is everything." At the time, I didn't fully understand what she meant, but in those quiet moments, as I watched my husband with that woman across the room, her words rang in my ears. It wasn't just betrayal, it was the loss of respect, of trust, of the life I thought we had. I remember our early days together, the laughter, the late-night talks. the way he used to hold my hand so tightly, as if nothing could touch us. I can't lie, I wanted to remember that version of him that night, to find it somewhere under all the lies. But the reality hit me hard. People can change, and sometimes the change is invisible until it's too late. So there we were, in the middle of a crowded room, my family beside me, my heart racing. I tried to keep my voice steady, my emotions calm. I knew that losing control would only give him power. Instead, I focused on the little details. My daughter's eyes looking to me for guidance, my sister's quiet support, my mother's steady presence. They were my anchor, my reminder that I was stronger than the betrayal in front of me. I realized something crucial that night. This wasn't just about him, it was about reclaiming my dignity, showing my family that I wouldn't let anyone, not even my husband, diminish my worth. That strength, quiet as it was, made all the difference. And as I stood there, heart pounding, I whispered to myself, "This is the moment I take back my life." Before I continue, if you're following this story, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to my channel. There's more to come, and you won't want to miss how everything unfolded that night. As the night went on, the tension in the room seemed to grow with every passing minute. I stayed calm on the outside, but inside, my heart was pounding like a drum. I could feel my hands getting sweaty, but I forced myself to take slow, steady breaths. I couldn't let him see that I was shaken. Not here, not now. I noticed him glance at me several times, each look carrying a flicker of guilt, or maybe fear. The way he shifted when the other woman smiled at him, leaning in as if she owned his attention, made something inside me ache. I tried to focus on my family instead, feeling their quiet support like a shield around me. My daughter sat close, clutching my hand, and I whispered, "Stay strong, baby. We're together in this." She nodded, her lips tight, sensing the storm before anyone spoke a word. Then it happened. He came toward me, smiling nervously, trying to cover up whatever had been going on. "Hey, I didn't expect to see you here," he said. His voice sounded uneven, and I noticed the slight tremor. "I'm always here," I replied softly, letting the words hang in the air. Not a challenge, just a statement of truth. He tried to explain, stumbled over excuses, but each word felt hollow. My heart ached, but my voice remained steady. "You've been hiding something from me," I said, keeping my eyes locked on his, "and now everyone here knows too." He glanced at the other woman, then back at me. I could see him realizing that this wasn't just about a simple conversation. I had my family with me, and in that moment, I felt the quiet power of that presence. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was undeniable. The woman by his side looked startled, her smile fading. I could almost hear the room holding its breath, even though no one else had noticed yet. My mother, my sister, and my daughter didn't speak, but their eyes were sharp, and that gave me courage. I didn't have to yell or demand. My calm, steady presence was louder than any words could be. Small gestures, little glances, the way he avoided my eyes, all of it started to unravel the illusion he had built. My mind replayed every time he had been distant, every secret text, every unexplained absence, and now there it was, proof of what I had feared all along, sitting just a few feet away. I realized that the rising conflict wasn't about words or accusations, it was about the truth finally stepping into the light. The tension in the room became almost unbearable, but I kept my posture strong. My heart felt heavy, but I also felt something else, clarity. The mask was off and nothing could hide it anymore. And in that silence, I knew that the real confrontation was about to happen, not in whispers, not in rumors, right here in front of everyone I cared about. The moment came faster than I expected. He turned to me, trying to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. That's when the truth spilled out, not in a dramatic confession, not in shouted words, but in the quiet, undeniable way he froze when he saw my family standing behind me. The other woman's hand lingered on his arm, and he didn't pull away. That's when I knew There was no excuse left, no hiding behind lies. I took a deep breath, letting the silence stretch just long enough for everyone to feel it. My daughter's eyes were wide, my mother's hands clenched in quiet resolve, and my sister's jaw tight with anger. I felt a surge of both sadness and strength at the same time. This wasn't just my betrayal anymore. It was the exposure of years of deception, and it was happening right in front of the people I loved most. "I trusted you," I said softly, my voice steady but layered with hurt. "I brought my family here tonight to see the man I married, not the man who would betray us like this." He stumbled over words, tried to explain, but it was useless. Every excuse sounded weak, every gesture too little, too late. And then something I didn't expect happened. He collapsed. Not dramatically, not like in movies, but he just sank to the floor, overwhelmed by shame, guilt, or maybe the sudden weight of being confronted by everyone he had hurt. I remember the room going quiet, people stopping mid-conversation, glasses freezing in mid-air. My mother whispered, "Stay strong, baby." My daughter clutched my hand even tighter, as if to anchor me to the reality of what had just happened. My sister's eyes never left him, a mixture of disbelief and quiet fury. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel happy. I felt free. Free from the weight of pretending. Free from the anxiety of wondering, is this happening again? The truth was out, the betrayal exposed, and I was finally standing firmly on my own ground. I helped him sit up, not out of forgiveness, but because I am not cruel. I realized that this wasn't about punishment, it was about clarity, about facing reality and reclaiming my own life. The other woman left soon after, leaving him there, confronted and stripped of the illusions he had created. It was painful, yes, heartbreaking, yes, but also strangely peaceful. I felt the presence of my family, their support wrapping around me like a warm blanket. I knew that after this night, nothing would be the same, but maybe, just maybe, it could be better. If you're following my story and want to see what happened next, how I faced the aftermath and rebuilt my life, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You won't want to miss the rest of this journey. After that night, life didn't magically return to normal. In fact, the days that followed were some of the hardest I had ever faced. There were quiet mornings where I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my coffee, thinking about everything that had happened. The betrayal still stung, like a shadow lingering over the corners of my mind. But I also felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: control. My life was mine again, even if it didn't feel perfect. My family stayed close. My mother's presence was steady, a reminder that I was never truly alone. My sister checked in every day, her voice warm but firm. "You did the right thing. Don't let anyone make you doubt yourself." And my daughter, my sweet daughter who had witnessed the beginning of this heartbreak, clung to me, but also learned something valuable, that even in the worst moments, we can stand tall. I had to make decisions, hard decisions. Conversations with my husband were no longer about excuses or apologies. They were about reality, about boundaries, about respect, about whether we could even continue in any form of partnership. I realized that the resolution wasn't about getting revenge or seeing him hurt or even proving I was right. It was about reclaiming my dignity and protecting my heart. There were tears, of course, quiet, late-night tears when no one could see. Tears for the love I had believed in, for the dreams that now felt broken. But there were also smiles, small, tentative smiles, when I realized how strong I had become. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's simply keeping your head high, walking through the pain, and refusing to let it define you. I also learned something about forgiveness, not the kind that means forgetting or excusing betrayal, but the kind that frees your own heart. I could let go of the anger that weighed me down without letting him back into my life the same way. That was my resolution, to release what I couldn't change and focus on what I could, myself, my family, my peace. In the weeks that followed, I noticed subtle changes. Conversations became calmer, laughter returned to my home, soft but genuine. And when I looked at my daughter, I saw resilience mirrored in her eyes. That was the greatest gift, showing her that even when life hurts, we have the power to rise above. I won't say it was easy, healing never is, but every step I took toward clarity, toward strength, felt like reclaiming a part of myself I had almost lost. And that night at the party, the confrontation, the heartbreak, it became the turning point that allowed me to rebuild, to see the truth, and to embrace a future I could trust again. Looking back now, I see that night at the party as a turning point, not just for my marriage, but for me. It was painful, yes, and it changed the way I see the world, but it also reminded me of something important. Strength often comes in quiet moments, in the choice to stand tall, even when your heart feels heavy. After everything happened, I focused on the little things: morning walks with my daughter, long talks with my sister, even just sitting with my mother over coffee. These small, ordinary moments became my anchors. They reminded me that life continues, that joy can return even after betrayal. And slowly, I realized that I didn't need anyone to validate my feelings. I didn't need him to apologize or explain. My peace was mine to claim, and nothing could take that away. I also learned the value of honesty and boundaries. Trust isn't given freely, it's earned and maintained through respect and care. And sometimes the hardest thing we can do is admit when someone we love isn't capable of giving us that. That realization hurt deeply, but it was freeing. I no longer felt trapped by expectations or the fear of confrontation. I could simply be myself, fully, without compromise. My family remained my foundation. Their quiet support, their presence, and their love helped me navigate the aftermath, and I could see how important it was to let the people who care about you witness the truth, not to shame someone, but to reclaim your story, to honor your feelings, and to show others, especially the younger ones, that strength comes from within. Sometimes I still think about him, about the man I married, about the choices he made, but I don't dwell on the pain anymore. I've learned to accept the past for what it is and to focus on the life I want to build going forward. The betrayal was a chapter, not the entire story, and I've found peace in knowing that my story continues with me in control, surrounded by love and truth. So if there's one thing I hope people take away from my story, it's this: life will test you, people will disappoint you, and sometimes the ones you trust the most may hurt you. But your strength, your dignity, and your heart are yours to protect. Stand tall, protect your peace, and remember that even in the darkest moments, there's hope, there's love, and there's the chance to start anew. If you're inspired by my journey and want to follow the rest of my story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. There's more to come, and together we can navigate these real-life stories of heartbreak, resilience, and hope. In the days and weeks that followed the party, life felt different, like I had stepped through a door I didn't even realize was there. The world hadn't changed, but my perspective had. I could see things clearly now, not through the lens of denial or hope, but through truth. The man I loved, the life I imagined, was not the reality I lived in. Accepting that was painful, but it was also freeing. I spent a lot of time alone, reflecting, sitting in my living room, watching the sunlight filter through the windows. I thought about how I had allowed my fear of confrontation to weigh on me for years. I realized that the strength I needed had always been inside me. I just had to trust it. And that night, when I stood in that crowded room with my family beside me, I finally claimed it. My daughter noticed the change too. She started asking questions, not about him, but about life, about how to stand up for herself, about how to know her worth. I could see the lessons of that night reflected in her eyes, lessons I wished someone had taught me when I was her age. And I realized that part of my healing was teaching her that strength isn't loud. It's quiet, it's calm, it's knowing when to act and when to walk away. I also found a sense of gratitude in the aftermath, grateful for my family who stayed by my side without judgment, grateful for the clarity that pain often brings, forcing us to see what we might otherwise ignore, grateful for the resilience I discovered in myself, the kind of resilience that isn't flashy or dramatic, but enduring, steady, and real. There were difficult moments, of course, seeing reminders of him, running into mutual friends, hearing about the life he tried to maintain without me. It all stung. But I learned to let go of the anger that could have consumed me. I replaced it with focus on my work, my home, my daughter, and on rebuilding a life that aligned with my values. The betrayal no longer defined me. It became a catalyst for growth. I also began to understand forgiveness differently, not the kind that lets someone back in or excuses what they did, but the kind that releases the burden on your own heart. I forgave myself for trusting, for loving fully, and even for feeling hurt. I forgave him in the sense that I could move forward without bitterness, without letting his actions shadow the rest of my life. And slowly, life started to feel lighter. I laughed more freely, I slept more peacefully, and I realized that the future, uncertain and unpredictable as it might be, was mine to shape. That realization brought a quiet, steady joy that no betrayal could take away. Looking back now, I can say that night at the party changed everything, not just for my marriage, but for me. It taught me lessons I wish I had known sooner, lessons that I now carry with me every day. Most importantly, I learned that my worth does not depend on anyone else's actions or approval. No one can take away your dignity unless you let them, and no betrayal can define who you are unless you allow it. After the confrontation, I focused on healing. I focused on my daughter, my family, and myself. I rediscovered the things I loved: small joys, quiet moments, long walks, and deep conversations with people who genuinely care. Those little pieces of life reminded me that happiness doesn't have to be loud or grand. It can be gentle, steady, and incredibly real. I also learned to trust my instincts. I realized that if something feels off, it probably is. I stopped ignoring my gut feelings, stopped excusing behaviors that didn't align with respect or love. That awareness gave me power. It helped me make choices that prioritized my peace instead of trying to hold on to something that was already broken. Forgiveness became another lesson. I forgave him, not because he deserved it, but because I needed to release the weight in my own heart. Holding on to anger and resentment only hurt me. Releasing it allowed me to breathe, to move forward, and to open myself to life without fear. I also forgave myself for trusting, for hoping, for loving fully, even when that love was betrayed. That self-forgiveness brought a sense of freedom I had never felt before. Now, when I think about that night, I don't remember it with anger or sadness. I remember it as a turning point, the moment I stood tall, faced the truth, and took back control of my life. I remember the strength in my daughter's eyes, the pride in my mother's, and the quiet support of my sister. And I carry those memories with me as a reminder. Strength is often quiet. courage is steady, and love for yourself is the foundation of everything. Life hasn't been perfect since then, but it's been real, it's been honest. And in that honesty, I've found peace, resilience, and a sense of hope that I never want to lose. I now understand that betrayal, heartbreak, and disappointment don't have to break us. They can teach us, strengthen us, and guide us toward a life that is truly ours. So to anyone watching this story, remember this: stand tall, trust yourself, and never let anyone's actions dim your light. Life may be unpredictable, people may hurt us, but your strength, dignity, and heart are yours to protect, always. If my story inspired you or touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Your support helps me continue sharing real-life stories of resilience, hope, and the quiet strength that lives inside all of us.